Okay, hello everyone. This is Siddharth Damber from Chicago Arthritis and Regenerative Medicine. This is our weekly live event. It's June 3rd, 2020. My mother just sent me a message saying you're drinking water while live. Yes, I know. It's okay. These are some fairly extreme times, whether you're talking COVID, whether you're talking about protests, whether you're talking about rioting, an extra sip of water on a live stream, I think is okay right now. I think we all get some leeway. So, I'm going to keep it relatively focused and straightforward today. I normally am focused on obviously talking about medical related issues because I'm a physician. Obviously, what else am I going to talk about? But the last couple of months, everything has been so focused on COVID, and that's like everything's affected by that. Are we talking about condition X? What's going on with COVID? People are on treatment Y, but how does COVID affect that? COVID. And at some point, you start to get kind of drained from just talking about everything connected with COVID, but that's obviously what's on people's minds. And so as you try to stretch out to talk about other things, I think there's always value in that kind of diversity of thought and thinking and what else is going on. This last week, however, we have to be honest, and the only thing that's on the mind for a lot of us in the United States is really what's been going on socially in the world, or rather in our country. And it's relevant from not only the standpoint of that's what on my mind, and that's what's on the mind of everyone that works in my office, my colleagues, in the town I live in, my family, but I'm sure all of you as well. But also, how do we grow, adapt, and how do we get better with what we're doing? Because some of the themes and topics of what's going on right now affects us in healthcare as well, for sure. And so, obviously the big picture right now is all about George Floyd and protests related to that, and now some of the violent activities related or surrounding that as well. And first and foremost, it's made me think about some things very differently. And, the video of George Floyd getting killed, I've never seen anything quite so dramatic and so vicious. To see someone literally get choked out and killed on a video, that's something. With that said, I mean, we're constantly nowadays seeing videos of Black Americans, Black people being shot by either security forces or civilians, and that's some heavy stuff, and so relevant because it affects not only our neighbors, our colleagues, coworkers, employees, team members, all that kind of stuff, but some of this even affects my daughter, who's 6 years old. I'm obviously very disturbed to see some of these kind of things on TV because it is extreme and so dehumanizing. But on top of that, I'm obviously not thrilled that my 6-year-old daughter is seeing some of these things. And while she hasn't necessarily seen the video of that of George Floyd being killed, she knows what's happened. She knows that this happened to somebody by a police officer who is supposed to be there to help. And fortunately, my wife has a level of sophistication and emotional intelligence to have that kind of conversation with her to give some perspective and thought and understanding to it. But what a world that we live in, that our kids that young have to be thinking and aware of this. Obviously incredible, not a good thing. On the other hand, also just seeing the video of George Floyd being killed, knowing some of the things that he said, not just that he can't breathe, but even calling out to his mother, knowing that his life is ending. I mean, just heartbreaking, really just amazing. And in my office today, we have our weekly meeting, and we spend some time talking about this because it affects all of us and it weighs on us. And I think talking about it, discussing it is vital really make some, not to make sense of it, but to just sort of deal with it. And so that's really what's been on my mind. It's been impressive, the nonviolent protests that have happened after that. It's very encouraging to see the diverse group of people that are involved in that, whether it's ages, whether it's racial, ethnic groups all over the country. That's incredibly positive and productive, and something that I'm proud of as an American for sure. On the flip side, the violence, the riots, the looting that have happened afterward is devastating and very disappointing and so hurtful to people. And to see what's happened, certainly in the city I live in here in Chicago, is shocking. And first and foremost, understand that here at work, we're very fortunate that even though we're located downtown, we're in an area that is still relatively protected and okay and safe. And so in our office, we've been fine. In fact, we're starting this week, we've been working in the office 3 days per week, and starting next week, we're here 5 days per week. We've been fortunate that things have not been more extreme or problematic. And so I'm very grateful for that. This goes much beyond just, what we're doing at work. The reality is that here at work, we'll be okay. We'll get through this. Security is fine. But, it's made me think about other things as well. At baseline, there are security issues that a lot of our friends, colleagues have to deal with that maybe we don't always think about. And I think decent people think about, what they've seen in the last week and say, this is unacceptable, and having that kind of animosity or dehumanization of another person is unacceptable, especially when it's based on things like race, ethnicity, and gender. It's occurred to me that, at baseline, obviously Black people have a level of stress and bias that they have to deal with that most of us don't have to think about. And even if we have our own issues and our own biases that we have to confront on a regular basis, they, our Black brothers, sisters, colleagues, friends, neighbors, they deal with a level of stress on a daily level that is crazy, and it's unacceptable. Since I've had my daughter, who's 6 years old, I've thought about issues that women deal with in a much different way as well. And, it's at baseline, it's disturbing for me to think that at baseline, women have concerns about security every single day, and that the greatest threat to womankind is mankind. That's terrible. And so even if we don't have explicit biases, and if we don't have explicit badness in our heart or in our actions, the implicit biases that so many of us carry and walk around with are making the lives for a lot of our citizens worse, whether it's for Black folks, other ethnic or racial groups, and certainly for women as well. That's unacceptable, and I think that's something that as individuals we have to work on. Locally, when I didn't grow up in Chicago. I grew up in Western New York, but I've been in Chicago for almost 20 years now, and I've been in practice since 2008. So for 12 years now, and the vast majority of people that have worked for me have generally grown up and have very deep roots in Metro Chicago, whether that's North Side, South Side, West Side, or the suburbs. And to see their city and their area being burned down is very rough. And it made me realize that for a lot of the people that have spent the time and the effort to help me at work, to help patients, and to help my professional career, that a lot of them at baseline have security issues based on the neighborhood that they live in, or social issues that they have to deal with if based on their racial or ethnic background, or security concerns just because they're women, and the majority of people that work in my office are women. And it strikes me that for them to still be able to deal with that on a daily basis and to come to work and to show such a high level of professionalism, I mean, that takes a lot, and I'm impressed by that. And I'm extremely grateful for that, because a lot of those things I don't necessarily have to think about on a daily basis. And I'm impressed that those folks who support me and help me out are able to push through those things in a way that goes above and beyond what is frequently required or expected. And so I'm extremely grateful for that. So, it's interesting. Here in Chicago, we are actually in the next phase of opening up. Like, we've had this crazy week where protests are still ongoing, but on a nonviolent basis. Incredible amounts of violence, though. And yet we are actually opening up to the next phase to account for COVID. And I think for businesses that have the wherewithal, the guts to kind of persevere and try to open up now, hats off to them, because that's not easy. I can tell you here at Chicago Arthritis and Regenerative Medicine, we've been very fortunate that we've been able to continue at a significant level, because my team's been able to figure out telemedicine at such a high level, and we're pretty much getting back to full capacity and doing what we need to do. But this is, the new normal. It's got to be better than the old normal, because the old normal wasn't that good. The old normal was a world that made it a lot harder for Black folks, for women, and was kind of lousy to begin with. And I think this is an opportunity for us where we have such extreme challenges, but we can do extremely well. And how we react to create a better world is how we are defined going forward. So, hopefully the new normal is dramatically better than what we've been dealing with. Anyway, I know this has been sort of off my normal flow and sort of ideas, but this is important. Reality is we need to do better for each other, but this affects not just things outside the office. The reality is that when you look at health outcomes for Black folks, Latinos, even women, when it comes to heart disease, like their outcomes are worse than other populations. And is that because that there are intrinsic problems, metabolic problems? Maybe, but are there differences in terms of how people are treated and dealt with, how their health concerns are addressed long term? If Black folks have higher rates of high blood pressure long term because they're not getting the same level of care that the rest of us do, or if their rates of asthma are worse than other asthmatics, then they do worse with COVID. And that's what we see. We see that COVID patients that are having much harder times tend to be Blacks and Latinos. And I can't fix, none of us can fix the macro, the global problems. But on an individual basis, on a micro basis, we can do better. And I think we all deserve that, to live in a world that is better. So thank you for your time. Have a good day and live well, and look forward to talking again next week. Bye-bye.